A startup CEO schedules a job interview. Simple enough, right? But the moment the call starts, something goes very wrong. The candidate takes over. He starts firing questions about the CEO's education, his qualifications, his team size, whether the company even has a website. The CEO never gets a chance to ask a single thing. And then the candidate hangs up, just like that. The CEO posted about it online, and the line that caught the internet's attention was this: it felt less like a professional interview and more like a high pressure oral examination. That's what we're breaking down today, word by word, paragraph by paragraph. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thiago here, and welcome to another episode of The Trending Edge. In this series, I pick a recent piece of news I find relevant, share it with you, break down some of the vocabulary, and connect it to your journey from B1 to B2 or B2 to C1 proficiency. All right, so let's get into it. So here's how the article opens. I'm going to read it, and then we stop and break it down. Here it is. What was supposed to be a straightforward recruitment conversation quickly spiraled into an awkward and unsettling experience for a startup founder, leaving him puzzled about boundaries and basic professionalism. All right, let's stop here. The first word is straightforward. Something straightforward is simple, clear, no complications. It's the opposite of complicated. A straightforward question has one obvious answer. A straightforward task doesn't require much thought. The CEO here was expecting this call to be exactly that: routine, simple, no surprises. That's your entry point here into the story. Now, we have quickly spiraled into. To spiral is a beautiful image. Think of a spiral staircase going down. When a situation spirals, it starts going in a bad direction, and it picks up speed as it goes. Basically, you lose control of it. It's not a slow decline, it's a spiral. The conversation spiraled into an argument. You see? The project spiraled out of control. This is very natural in professional English, B2 level at least. And then we have awkward and unsettling. Two adjectives working together here. Awkward means socially uncomfortable. That feeling when something doesn't fit right, when social dynamic is off. Unsettling is stronger. Something unsettling disturbs you. It leaves you with a feeling you can't quite shake. The article uses both. Awkward on the surface, unsettling underneath. That's a deliberate word choice. And finally, leaving him puzzled about boundaries and basic professionalism. To be puzzled is to be confused in a way that makes you stop and think. Not angry, puzzled. Like a puzzle you can't solve. And notice what he's puzzled about. Boundaries. That word is going to come up again in this story. Boundaries. These are the lines you don't cross in a professional interaction. Now, the article gives us more background on the candidate. Let's read. The candidate in question, an academic holding senior positions as both professor and dean, had initially reached out through LinkedIn. During their early exchanges, the applicant appeared enthusiastic and convincing, presenting himself as an ideal match for a leadership role within the startup. Encouraged by this, the founder arranged a virtual discussion to explore the opportunity further. All right, let's stop here and define some more things. An academic holding senior positions. An academic is someone who works in the university world, a researcher, a professor, someone whose career is built around knowledge and institutions. And holding positions, not just having them, holding them. That verb implies weight, responsibility. You don't just have a senior position, you hold it. Now, the applicant appeared enthusiastic and convincing. Two more great adjectives. First, enthusiastic. This means showing genuine excitement and interest. Then we have convincing, which means making you believe something. The candidate was enthusiastic enough that you believed him. He made a good case for himself. And then we get this phrase, presenting himself as an ideal match. To present yourself as something is to frame yourself deliberately, consciously, in a particular light. This is the language of professional self-promotion. When you walk into a job interview and you say, I have exactly the background you're looking for, you're presenting yourself as the ideal match. It's strategic, it's intentional. And at the C1 level, you need to be able to do this fluently in English. And then, encouraged by this, the founder arranged a virtual discussion to explore the opportunity further. I love how the article here uses encouraged. The founder didn't just decide to proceed, he was encouraged. That word tells us he was moved by what he saw. The candidate's enthusiasm and self presentation gave the founder enough confidence to take the next step. And then, now, real quick, before we continue, a story like this is gold for English learners because you are getting real vocabulary like straightforward, spiraled, unsettling, convincing, presenting himself as, in a real context that makes total sense. You're not just memorizing words from a list, you're seeing them live in a story that actually happened. And this is exactly what I've built into the B2 Edge app. Every day, real content like this, real language, real context, and exercises that push you to actually produce these words, not just recognize them. If that sounds like what you need, click the link in the description. So let's continue with the story. All right, here's where the story turns. This is the paragraph that made the internet react. Let's read it. However, the moment the conversation began, the tone shifted dramatically. Instead of a balanced exchange, the candidate immediately took control, launching into a rapid stream of pointed and probing questions. Ooh, some really nice vocabulary here. Let's check it out. The tone shifted dramatically. This is such a useful phrase. The tone of a conversation is its emotional quality. Is it formal, friendly, tense, professional, aggressive? And when it shifts, it changes. Dramatically, not gradually, not slowly, all at once. And notice the structure. Instead of X, Y happened. Instead of a balanced exchange, the candidate took control. That contrast is doing the work. Now, launching into a rapid stream of pointed and probing questions, we have two great adjectives here working together, and I want to stop on both of them. First of all, pointed. In a physical sense, pointed means sharp, like the tip of a knife. Pointed. In a conversational sense, a pointed question is one that goes directly at something. It's not vague, it's not open-ended. It targets a specific thing, and it expects a specific answer. A pointed question makes you feel like you're being cornered. Now, the second word is probing. To probe means to investigate. Investigate carefully, deeply, like a doctor probing a wound. A probing question goes beneath the surface. It doesn't accept the easy answer. It digs. When you combine pointed and probing, you get questions that are both targeted and deep. That's a very uncomfortable combination. Now let's continue with the next paragraph. The entrepreneur found himself on the receiving end of an intense barrage of queries, ranging from his academic background to the structure and legitimacy of his company. Okay, two big expressions here. First of all, on the receiving end. This is a very natural idiom in English. To be on the receiving end of something means you're the one it's happening to, and it's usually not pleasant. You are on the receiving end of criticism, on the receiving end of bad news, on the receiving end of a barrage of questions. You didn't choose to be there, it's just happening to you. Now, a barrage of queries. A barrage, this originally comes from military language. A barrage is a concentrated, overwhelming attack, artillery fire, bombs, all at once. In everyday English, we use it to describe anything that comes at you with the same intensity. A barrage of complaints, a barrage of emails, a barrage of questions. And queries is just a more formal word for questions, very common in British English and in professional writing like this one. So the CEO is on the receiving end of a barrage of queries. He didn't see it coming. And the article then says, ranging from his academic background to the structure and legitimacy of his company. Can you believe that? The word legitimacy here is doing a lot of work because legitimacy means whether something is real, legal, or valid. When the candidate asked about the legitimacy of the company, he was essentially asking, is this startup real? Is it properly registered? Does it actually exist as a legal entity? That's just not curiosity. That's a challenge. That's saying, prove to me you're real. Can you imagine that? The CEO is the one who called the interview, and now he is being asked to prove his company exists. All right, let's continue here. This next section gets to the emotional core of the story. What stood out most was the complete lack of reciprocity. The founder was not given any opportunity to ask about the candidate's experience, motivations, or suitability for the role. The discussion felt less like a professional interview and more like a high pressure oral examination, where the power dynamic appeared heavily skewed. All right, three expressions I want to pull out of this paragraph. Check it out. First, reciprocity. This is a C1 word for sure. Reciprocity means mutual exchange. I give, you give. I ask, you ask. I listen, you listen. When there's reciprocity, both sides contribute equally. When there is a lack of reciprocity, one side takes everything, the other side gets nothing. It's one directional. And in a professional conversation, reciprocity is essential. It's what makes it a conversation and not a monologue, or, in this case, an interrogation. Second, a high-pressure oral examination. Now, the article doesn't use the word viva, but this is exactly what a viva is. An oral examination where you sit in front of experts and defend yourself. And the key word here is high pressure. Not just an exam, a high-pressure one. The stakes feel real. You feel judged. You feel like the wrong answer will cost you something. And the third, the power dynamic appeared heavily skewed. Great phrase and great word, heavily skewed. This is sophisticated language. A power dynamic is the distribution of power between two people or groups in an interaction. In a job interview, normally the employer holds more power. They decide who gets hired. But here, the power dynamic was skewed. Skewed means shifted, tilted, off balance. If something is skewed, it's no longer even or equal. The candidate had taken so much control of the conversation that the power had shifted entirely in his direction. The CEO, the one who called the interview, had become the weaker party. I must say, this is a fascinating use of professional vocabulary to describe a very human and uncomfortable situation. Now let's go over the last section. Let's read it. Before the entrepreneur could properly explain the job responsibilities or share his vision for the company, the candidate abruptly declared disinterest and ended the call. There was no attempt at polite closure or mutual acknowledgement, just a sudden disconnect. Abruptly, without warning, suddenly, without any build-up or preparation. He didn't say, I'm not sure this is a good fit, let me think about it. No, he abruptly declared disinterest, decided, boom, done. And no attempt at polite closure. What a great phrase. Closure in a professional context means a proper ending, a thank you, a handshake, something like, I appreciate your time. Polite closure is the social minimum you give someone at the end of an interaction. It acknowledges the other person's time. And this candidate didn't do it. Just a sudden disconnect. Now, here's the line I find most interesting in this whole article. Interestingly, the rejection itself was not what unsettled the founder. Instead, it was the dismissive tone and perceived sense of superiority that lingered after the call ended. Dismissive. To dismiss something is to push it aside, to treat it as unworthy of serious attention. A dismissive tone says, you don't matter enough to be treated with care. It's a particular kind of disrespect, not aggressive, just indifferent, cold. That's often worse, actually. And that lingered. To linger means to stay longer than expected. A smell can linger in the room. A feeling can linger after an experience is over. The dismissive tone here lingered. It didn't leave when the call ended. That's the kind of interaction that follows you. All right, now, my professional opinion. I think what this story is really about, underneath all this drama, is something I call a register mismatch. Register mismatch. Register is the communication style appropriate for a given context. A job interview has its own register. It's usually collaborative, curious, mutual. An academic committee meeting has a different register, challenging, rigorous, hierarchical. This candidate walked into a job interview with the register of a Viva examiner, and it cost him the opportunity. I'm not even sure if he wanted the opportunity, to be honest. With that attitude, in my 20-year career as an English teacher, I have met professionals who speak excellent English in their domain, but completely miss the register when they step outside it. And this is what takes you from B2 to C1. Not just the vocabulary, but knowing how and when to use it, when a certain tone or language is appropriate and when it is not. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think of this story? Was the candidate simply out of line and inappropriate? Or do you have some sympathy? Was this a register mismatch? Someone applying the wrong communication style from their world to a new context? Leave a comment below. And if you've ever been in a situation where you feel you misread the register, an interview, a meeting, a professional call in English, tell me about it here in the comment section below. I would love to hear your story and experience. All right, today we read a real article, and along the way you picked up some serious advanced vocabulary. Straightforward, spiraled, unsettling, convincing, presenting himself as, the tone shifted, pointed, probing, barrage on the receiving end, reciprocity, power dynamic, skewed, abruptly, dismissive, lingered. Woo! It was a lot, right? That's the kind of language that shows up in professional conversations, in performance reviews, in high-stakes meetings. And now you have it in context, which is the only way it actually sticks to your brain and your memory. Now you have two choices. Number one, you can go out and find content like this on your own every day. Read it, pull the vocabulary, build the exercises to practice yourself. Or number two, you open my app, the B2 Edge, and you let my AI coach do that for you every single day. Personalized to your level with exercises that push you to produce English and not just understand it. The choice here is simple. The choice is between manual effort versus optimized growth. So if you are a professional, a learner who values your time, check out the app. Click the link in the description and I'll see you inside it. I'm Thiago. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.